You ready, sister?
I'm ready. Rock and roll.
Hello, this is the John Chester Show. Don't you just love that name? I mean, Ed Burns show, but I don't know who Ed Burns is. So welcome. Yeah, and I'm the one. I'm John Chester, and today I'm real blessed to have a person. I've been on her shows a couple of times, and I so and every few months we call each other and we're going, hey, you want to be on my show? I'm a musician. I'm a music therapist. She's a realtor. And the businesses, it seems, have about as much in common as a fish and a bicycle. But it when you break it down into what components of people and what they really do, jobs well done have a very similar components. So this friend that I've met on the OBBM, she's a dedicated realtor who I like to think looks at her business as a calling that impacts more than the marketing of buildings. I view how she goes about her duties as a type of ministry that affects people, couples, their children, and neighbors. See, I believe the individuals who outwork their calling in such a way raise the bar in their field and improve life for all of us. She's a seasoned realtor with Keller Williams, serving in the DFW, that's Dallas-Fort Worth area for you Yankees. Over the past 16 years, with her extensive experience in the real estate market, she has helped countless clients find their perfect homes. In addition to her real estate expertise, Robin is a senior home coach specializing in assisting older adults as they navigate, I love this, they navigate the important transitions involved in planning for the next chapter in their lives. Her compassionate approach and deep knowledge make her a trusted guide in the community. You're going to get more information. She's got a podcast, by the way, called Relax, I Got This, which is so cool. Relaxing, embracing life after 60. And you'll be able to get other pertinent information. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Robin McCoy. Hi, Robin.
Hey, John, how have you been?
I have been a bit intense. It's been, I've got 4 teenagers that kind of orbit in and out of the house. And anybody who has ever had teenagers in their lives, it's like kind of a combination between a stampede and the plague, but it's okay. And
But they're all yours.
I hope so. So it's okay though. I like it. I like the madness. I'm one of those kind of people that I that kind of emotional stampede. I like it. It works for me. So
It's all a part of life, right? It's all just a chapter in a season.
got kids?
I have 2 bonus children. So I inherited them when I married their father. They were 8 and 10. And now I believe they're 27 and 29, I believe. So I did go through the teenage years, but kind of on a part-time basis. They were with their mom too.
Hand them off if that got to be really messy.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my gosh. Oh gosh.
I think that was the way to do it, honestly. I didn't have to change diapers. I didn't have to rush, so I mean, I think I chose the right way to do that for me.
Yeah,
For
no,
me.
I like that. That's really cool. So, Robin, boils down to having a home, and
Mhm.
I lived in this house that we have for 24 years.
Long time. Most people don't live in their house that long anymore.
How long do most people normally? I mean, what's the general rate there?
Well, I think if somebody today, when they're buying a house, they usually 5, 7 years, 8, less than 10 is really kind of the typical these days, unless you are a boomer, right? If you are the Gen X baby boomer age, you do tend to stay. You've stayed in your house a lot longer because that's what we did. I think a lot of times people are realizing that just with the, change in the market and the way things work, that this will be where we start and then we'll move up later.
Oh yeah. Okay. And we were very blessed. This is a small home, and it's in between DFW and a city called Irving. And we were. It was a family thing to where our business collapsed because of a change in Medicare, Medicaid back around 2000, and we were offered this place to kind of fall into. We didn't have kids, just my wife, who I've been married next month for 31 years.
Wow.
Yeah, well, she hasn't gotten rid of me
God
yet.
bless her. God bless her.
That's right. She keeps changing the locks, but I know where we live.
But I keep finding a way back in.
Over here. So,
Funny.
so she where oh yeah, so we moved into here by the good graces of my stepmom, and we end up purchasing the house, and we own the house now. It's a smaller house, but it's a home.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to discuss what I want to really talk to you about is the difference between a house and a home. One of the things I like, I have a very broad interest on social media. I love to look at urban explorers, and they'll go into these vacant houses and vacant buildings and mine shafts or whatever. And I don't know, it's just voyeuristic weirdness. But and they'll go into houses, and some of these houses, it's like the people just were transported out right in the middle of their lives.
Yeah.
A ton of stuff. Do you ever come across that as a realtor where all of a sudden you have to sell a house from the family and there's still stuff in it?
Oh, yes. I just recently last spring, unfortunately, my client's mother had passed away and she hadn't lived in the home for a while. She was older and she had gone into some, senior housing, and then she passed away. And you walk in and it was as if she had walked out and hadn't come back, which may very well have been what had happened. The coffee, I mean, the coffee pot, there were still dishes in the sink. There was, a lot of these sorts of things. And, she had lived there for a long time and her things were there, and they came and, you as the, we call them the go-to kids, right? We're that age group, the go-to kids, the adult children of our older generations that then have to go in and take care of things, and the things that it was mom's home, or maybe it was our home where we grew up, where we spent, our formative years.
Yeah.
And it's our home. And there's all those things in the home that make it that.
Right. No, I totally get that. I totally get that. Boom. I just made it different because I like to see myself. I'm that egotistical. No, not. But all right. So I like that. And it's kind of weird and sad at the same way. We had to do that with my mom. We had to because of the sickness, we pulled her out of the house, and then I had to go through it, and one of my sisters. And anyway, so
yeah, it's a tough thing, right? It's especially again with our older adults, they may have lived in that house just like you did, right? You moved into your house before your children were born. Now your children are 10, are teenagers, and then they're going to be in their 20s, and then they're going to go away. Yep. And you're going to have lived in that house for their entire lives.
That
and there's
that's to me, you mentioned that, and I'm an older guy, and my youth was spent in Houston, and I had specific memories in this perfect nuclear family, excuse me, neighborhood where all the moms knew each other, and crap in the neighborhood. John Ivor, what are you doing with that dog? Go back up, mom, right now.
Yep. That kind of stuff. Everybody's parents looked out for everybody's kids. Everybody knew you couldn't get away with anything.
Right.
You'd walk in and mom knew before you got home what you've been into.
Gosh, yes, heaven help me. So all these things make a home. And right. What is it? There's an old saying, it takes a whole lot of living to make a house a home. And I remember when we first moved into here, like most people do, and you have pizza while you're sitting on the floor while you're unpacking the boxes. But then it's the having the kids, it's the holidays, the birthdays, the passing of relatives, the seasons, and all these things start making an emotional investment into.
Mhm. Right.
So I want to ask you. Let me see if I can do this right, and I can't. Okay, hold on.
Yeah. I have faith in you, John.
Yeah. Well, we'll see about that. Uh, as a realtor, though, how do you define the difference between home beyond just a property?
It has so much to do with the client, right? So if I am working with someone purchasing a home, let's just say it's a first time home buyer, right? They're in their 20s, 30s. For whatever reason, they've decided to purchase their first home. One of the things that, like I mentioned before, that's changed is people are not necessarily going into their first home as their dream home, right? That's not where we're going to do all the things. This is our starter home. We can afford to get into this one, knowing that I'm going to build equity over time so that then I can go get that 4-bedroom house instead of the 3-bedroom house, or the, 3,000 square feet instead of 1,900, or whatever that looks like for someone. And that's a change. We over the last 16 years, as I've chatted and worked with first time buyers, is saying, you know what, this is going to be your first home. It's probably not going to be your last home. And so people go into it differently. Doesn't make it any less their home, right? They live there for 5 years, 7 years, and it is home.
Oh, yeah.
And they've developed the relationships, and maybe they've had their first or second child, or their dogs, or whatever their children may look like to them. Now, when it's a seller, right? So now I'm representing someone, that a homeowner, and now I need to tell them it's not their home anymore, it's a product.
Ooh, interesting shift.
Right? Because now we're trying to neutralize everything, because I want you, as the buyers coming through, to envision their family in there, their family having Christmas, their family having Thanksgiving dinner, their family having 4th of July barbecues. And so as the homeowner now, and I've had people sit at the dining room table as we sell their house that they've lived in and raised all their children in, it's been their home for years, in tears, because they see their children, playing on the floor in front of the Christmas tree, or coming in after graduation. And even though they're moving closer to those same children, they're selling this house so they can move closer to those same children somewhere else. It's still those memories, and having to tell them, we need to take all your pictures off the wall. We need to take those chairs out, whatever needs to happen to neutralize,
Yeah,
and make it less their home so it can become someone else's home.
a good point. So you're trying to get the people who live in it to emotionally divest themselves enough to where other people can emotionally invest.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Because when we are buying and selling, right, this is where we're going to live, right? We're going to live there. We are going to go to sleep at night there. We could spend 3 years or 23 years. Who knows, right? It just really depends. And I tell people, when they ask me sometimes, like a buyer, like, Robin, what do you think? I'm like, I'm not moving in with you, right? So this is what you think. Can you see yourself living in this house? Can you see yourself doing that?
Would you have a person arm themselves with when they walk into a house? I like that one. Can you see yourself here? But I mean, what other kind of emotional investment questions do you think you have?
Well, I think people need to, as they walk in, just because it's in the right zip code, is it the right house? Right? So, how are you going to function in the house? Right? And again, that depends on the human beings that are going to be moving in, right? Do you like to entertain a lot, or do you not want anybody in your house? Do you spend a lot of time outside? Or are you like, I don't like outside, right? So these are things that you need to think about as you're moving in, right? How do you function with you and your family in your home?
So, all right. Have you noticed the shift in what people consider important in a home? Oh, but the reason I say this is I drive around, I pedal around my neighborhood, and we have it's a certain kind of income over here, and I go pedal over here, and it's different. And I'm seeing the houses that were built in the 60s, 50s, whatever. And they had these huge bay windows, for example. And there's the living room that you and I and others of our age, that's where mom kept the dining room set that nobody was allowed near. The dining room was like had these little doors the
They did.
and it smelled like the 50-year-old sofa and, and the gold carpet and the shag, whatever. But and now I see people have slapped big screen TVs in there.
Yeah.
It's a common room. Before it was like the inner sanctum, and it was only Thanksgiving and Christmas
because the fancy sofa was in there.
Right.
Don't put your shoes on the living room sofa. Do that in the den.
Get plastic on. It was wonderful.
Well, and it's true. So, sometimes we walk into these older homes, and even though they may have been remodeled, people are saying, well, what am I going to do with that room? People don't have, not, and I say this, generically speaking, but formal living rooms. Most homeowners today don't use the formal living room. Now, some may use a formal dining room a little more, not many, but they look at how they can turn that into a playroom or an office or some other sort of flex rooms, right? We just call them flex rooms because you can do whatever you want with them.
Are people using patios even different?
They're usually they're extending them with a deck, they're covering them. I mean, it's hot here in Texas, right? I mean, we don't go and sit outside in July. There's like 3 weeks in the spring and 3 weeks in the fall, and that's about what we do, right? Or it's very early in the morning, right? Early in the morning, it's still a little bit, you get a little breeze. So outdoor spaces, they are very important. A lot of people like their outdoor kitchens. It makes them feel like it's an extension of the home. Depends on, pools, all those things. So I think after COVID too, we started understanding our homes a little differently. We started using them differently because all of a sudden we were stuck in our homes. Right? So now we're like, oh, we should extend that patio out, right? So that at least we can do something different. Or we never go in this room. What can we use this room for?
See, and as a kid, my parents used to entertain, and before we had kids, we used to entertain a lot as well, and we enjoyed that. My wife and I, that is, and then we had kids, and then COVID, and the house. We had to fight to keep the house from becoming a bunker.
Yes.
I don't.
Yes.
Because I don't know. I'm just too social. I went nuts during COVID, and
yeah, I can see where you would.
And I'm driving. I would go out driving. You're going outside again. We're not supposed to go out. Yeah, I know. Okay,
but I can't stay here either.
It was nuts. It was horrible. So I don't want my home to be a bunker. I like people repurposing rooms just fine if they have that kind of space.
Yeah. Well, and that's it too, right? So you ask what makes a home. Well, again, how are you going to function within those walls that you call home? Now, as a child, I moved around. We moved every 2 to 3 years, all over the country.
Army brat?
So that, no, dad working his way up the corporate ladder, and we moved every 2 to 3 years. So when I talk to people that say, I lived in that house my whole life, I don't know that emotion.
That's an entire investment.
It really is. And so I look at it, even our house that we've lived in since 2009, something came up, we need to sell that house. I can sell that house. I'm not attached to them. Home is where my people are for me. Home is my community. Home is my friends, my family. And then for me, I have a house.
I like that. No, that's good, because home can be a great thing. Home is where the heart is. I have a daughter right now who is stretching her legs and doing things that, so anyway,
And that maybe dad kind of wishes she wasn't doing.
I love you, sweetie, but damn. So anyway, when she texts us, when she's in town, for example, she'll say, hey, I want to swing by for a few days and come home. She doesn't say, I want to spend the night, I want to see you. She uses the word home. And home is a word in our language. And you study Hebrew, I've studied Hebrew, and these words have such gravity in the human soul and in the heart that it alters the path of our humanity enough to where it changes things. Christian people, for example, believe that the church is not a building, and they're correct. The church is the people, like you said.
Right.
So I think it's really healthy for people to not get ideologically stuck or emotionally stuck on a building.
Because the memories go with you, right? So kind of going back to the woman that sat at her dining room table crying as she was signing the listing paperwork, and we were putting a sign in her front yard, and she was just in tears. And I said, you have all those memories. The Christmas tree isn't there right now, but you remember what it looks like. You're going to have that same memory of that home when you move to Virginia and live down the street from those kids that were this big in your memory to now they're adults and their children.
Good.
So now you take those memories and you continue those traditions just in a different space.
And that's important, by the way, for people just with memories. Don't let your memories really become a ball and chain.
Yeah.
Again, I've lived in this house for almost 25 years. I'd be fine selling it and moving up or moving, because my kids are, again, starting to get into that empty nester phase. And I'm becoming middle-aged crazy. So, heaven knows.
No, it all works out.
I have no problem with doing that. But on the other hand, I keep my memories very solid up here, and it's an investment of types. So going to the other set of the pendulum, what advice do you give to, say, first-time buyers in terms of finding a place that truly feels like home?
I ask people, I say, okay, so where do you work? Right? Dallas is a big place, right? It's not like we're moving to Amarillo. We're moving into Dallas, one of the largest cities in our country. And so where do you work? I work here. Okay, but now where are the things that you do? Right? Where you go see your friends, where you go see your family? What are the non-work things? And decide what, as far as location goes, what's going to make the most sense so you love living where you're pulling your car in every night. Right? Where do you want to drive up and go, I'm home?
Yeah.
Whether you're single or you've got, a partner and a passel of kids, right? You want to feel happy in your heart, to feel good. I bought my first house in Dallas over in Irving in 2005, I think. I was single. I had a little dog, and that was it. But it was mine. And it was a little 1,400 square foot, 1950s old little house. But I would drive up, and it was mine.
Yeah.
And I could do whatever I wanted inside that house.
Nice.
I knocked out some walls. I did this. I did that. I mean, I painted things pink. I painted them purple. I did whatever I wanted because it was my home.
I get it.
And that's what, you want to be able to do. You want to be able to just say it's mine, because that, I think, helps with home too.
I agree. I lived in an apartment for a large percentage of my life before we settled into this house. And you had neighbors on the other side of the walls, and you couldn't drive nails into the wall or something. And it wasn't yours. It
wasn't yours.
Operate within these walls, but it wasn't yours. And Yeah. So first time sellers, they can emotionally invest in these things in such a way that they can lay down enough roots to start practicing what it's like to go to the next.
Well, exactly, right? So you've got this house, it's just you. You buy your first home, you make it yours, and then you meet somebody and they don't necessarily want to live in Irving or it doesn't make sense anymore or whatever. So now maybe you're open to with this other person to go find the next place, right? It doesn't mean that that house meant any less to you. When I rented it for a long time, and when it came time to sell it, right before the closing, I went in because man, I had some fun times in that house. I'm not gonna lie. I had some fun times in that house. And all those memories just kind of came flooding back with the friends that were over and the things that we did and the all of that stuff. So the memories are still there. It's just the house belongs to somebody else now.
Yeah, that's good. No, yeah, that's fine. So again, back on the other side now with last time sellers, and you've been posting about this on your social media, and I love this because I've worked in nursing homes most of my life as a music therapist. I go in there and I do my thing, and I see how people have transitioned. Now, I've also been an activity director, and I worked in marketing and some administration things, management, not as an administrator. Thank goodness, I would suck at nursing homes normally suck. So anyway, there goes my career. But never, good grief. You know, you go into never mind.
That's another program. A whole other show.
Oh, it could be all day. And I was going to go somewhere. Oh, okay. So I work in the nursing homes and I would see how they would move in people. And they have whole teams, a whole department of helping you sell your house and move your furniture, what you want to keep, because you have to pare down to like 1.1% of all your work belong into half of a room sometimes. And is that, are you any part of that kind of thing? Because I noticed, you know, what should seniors consider when exiting the market and selling their last home?
Well, the first thing is to plan ahead. Plan ahead, right? Don't, 95, what was the statistic? 95% of people say, I want to stay in my home and age in place. About 10 to 15% actually do, right? Because of age, because of illness, because of mobility, because of a lot of different things, right? So yes, we all want to stay in our homes as long as we can. And anything we can do within that home to make it safer for ourselves as we grow or as we grow older, right? Looking at stairs, small steps. I fell down the other day. I was in a house and I missed a step and I was on the floor and it hurt.
Yeah.
That hurt. I take an assessment going, making sure I didn't really hurt anything. Yeah. And then I got, so it doesn't take much that can, and if you're 61 versus 81, there's a big difference in what can happen when you miss that step and you hit that tile floor, right? So just start thinking ahead. Nobody's trying to kick you out of your house. And yet, think about your own quality of life as well, right? You've got this big asset. You've lived in it for 25, 35 years, right? It's probably all your money is in this house. How do we maximize this asset that you have so you can go do the things you want to do? And I am part of it. I want to help people. I always say a realtor is the last thing you need. And it's true. We are last, but that doesn't mean I can't help you declutter, downsize, get rid of stuff.
You're saying you're going to be in there helping them go?
No, I'm not going to do that, but I can help you get in touch with people. I can help get that stuff hauled off.
So that's part of your group of coworkers.
Well, my team, right? So in any real estate transaction, right? The realtor tends to be the hub, right? We know the inspectors, we know the lenders, we know the title companies, we know the repair people, the handymen, we're kind of this hub. Well, it's the same thing when we're selling that last house, right? I've got people to help you go. Where are we going? Right? We may not be going into, assisted living. Maybe we're just buying a condo, right? So I don't have to mow the lawn anymore. Right? So going from this to this, like you said, what are you taking with you? What will fit? Let's move that, we can map that out. Now, everything else needs to go away. So call your kids and tell them to come get what they want and do it by a certain date. Otherwise, it's up to me. So if you want all those high school trophies for softball, or the mums, the homecoming mums, or whatever those things are, which are unique to Texas, which I didn't know what I was looking at when I first went to a high school. Part of those bonus kids, and I went to a high school homecoming game, and I'm like, what are these things? Anyway, again, another story. But if you want your old homecoming mums, you need to come get them. Wow. And and be proactive about it, right? And start now. Because no good decisions are made in urgency.
I'm in my 60s. My wife is younger than me, thank goodness. And we are, now that, again, we're starting to become empty nesters. My wife is like getting a shovel and okay, look at this. And, we had to do that to our own mom's house with both her, both of them suffered from Alzheimer's, very close to each other. It's like we got finished with my mom, and then her mom became sick.
So hard.
Yeah. And so it was like at least a 10-year ordeal with both of them.
Yeah.
So we emptied their houses into here so we could sift through it. And we found some amazing stuff and a whole lot of junk, but we're still in the process of just, oh my gosh. And so,
and
we don't,
well, and when you're doing this,
we don't want to do that for kids.
No. And so now your kids are teenagers going into their 20s. Start going through some of that stuff now so you can live the memories with them.
Good.
And say, this mug you made for me when you were in grade school, and I just love it. Do you want to keep it? And then the kids go, no, Dad, I don't. And all that stuff, right? Make it. And if you've got adult children too, right? So now they're off with their families, bring them in, make them a part of it.
That's good.
Make them a part of it.
Good. Yeah, I did that with books last night. In the past few days, my wife found all the children's books. Seuss and Veggie Tales and Arch books and whatever. And the kids are like, right now they're in that cool phase. So nothing really upsets their
mojo.
Oh, look, it's the Veggie Tale. Oh, I always love the Pooh book. Look, hey, can you read this to me? Kind of thing. And I'll go, okay, yeah, sure, absolutely. So yeah, books, don't underestimate the books, please.
Yeah.
That was so much fun going through that. So yeah, you're right.
Just make it a family event. But I'll tell you, like you just said, we think we've all got time. And I'm not trying to tell people that they're all going to die tomorrow. And yet we get so overwhelmed by all the things in our house. And again, you don't want to leave all of that when your kids are worried about you because something bad happened. You're now 80 and something happened. And now we've just got to take care of it. And everybody just goes into urgency mode.
So what is it that you said a moment ago? No good decisions are made in
urgency.
Okay.
And then when there's an emergency, mom or dad falls, mom or dad gets dementia. Those are emergencies where suddenly they can no longer live safely. The key word there is safely in their home. Now, maybe the house is just too full of stuff. We need to get some stuff out so they're not tripping over extra furniture. Right? I mean, it just happens. We live in our houses for years and years. We get rid of a chair or we get another chair because, we need another chair. Now we got too many chairs. So let's get rid of some chairs so that we can walk through without risk of tripping over something.
All right. So on another topic, with housing prices are rising, how do you find something that feels like home, even if it's not really what they really wanted. They have to compromise on certain features.
Because again, home is what you make it. Home is the people inside it. Home is the memories you're making. That's what home is. Again, you can make a home in this house or that house. Which one's going to function better for you? And yet it's still, the home is where the heart is. Where's your heart?
So do the shifts in the housing market influence people's concept of home?
I think it does, in that they realize that maybe it's not going to be their forever home. Maybe their parents or their grandparents had the same house their whole lives, but they are realizing, as our environment changes, that the way we live changes.
Okay.
Right. And so understanding that, today I can afford this $350,000 house, picking a number. It's an older home. It's in one of the suburbs. It may need some updating, but it's a good, solid house. And that's great. Let me move into that house. In the meantime, I can work on it, and I can, update some things. I can paint it the way I want. I can freshen it up. I can make that feel like home to me. Then when the time comes, it's like, okay, we've done well with this house. Do I want to sell it, or do I want to use it as a rental and now be able to go and buy the next home for my growing family? Or that's a little bit more conducive to my life because I now work over here, all my friends are over there, or whatever life looks like.
Right. Right. So
and I think that's what it is.
With as people mature or life changes them, when I was a kid, I wanted an ultra modern looking home with odd angles and such. And now I just want a real nurturing kind of home. It's just something that fits, something that relaxes me.
Yeah. So, your opinions of things change as you get older, right? Like you said, sometimes now maybe you really like ultra modern your whole life. That's just really you. Or maybe it changes. Maybe you go through the phase of you like real traditional, and then all of a sudden the kids are gone and you're like, yeah, I like this clean, super clean lines. No muss, no fuss. So when the kids are gone and you're buying that condo downtown because you want to get back downtown and out of the suburbs, now that you don't worry about how your kids and where your kids are going to school. So now I'm downtown in a loft apartment, and this is really cool.
So the old real estate mantra of location, location, location is more than just what you have to drive to. It's where you live. And it's what you're comfortable around, and that includes noise. Again, I live in Irving. We have 183, 635, 30, 161 now booming through. We have the airport, we have train stations, and all these kind of things. So it's a noisy city.
Yeah.
Some people, they don't care, that's fine with them. People want to get out in the city. So the concept of home is really a lot more than just the building. It's more.
I think it's not even the building.
Okay, go ahead.
I think it's not even the building. I think, the more we've talked about this, before last week when we were talking about it, I had some thoughts and all this. The more we talk about it, I think the building is less home. It's what's inside it. It is what's inside it. Yeah. I asked those kids if they're coming home. Like Kirsten, the bonus daughter lives down in San Marcos. And I'm like, when are you coming home? She has not lived in Dallas since she was a freshman in college. She is almost 30. So that's a long time. But for me, it's her coming home. Because this is home for me, and she's coming home. Dallas isn't really home for her, except that that's where her mom, dad, and extra great bonus mom live.
How do you, at the very end of the whole transaction, you've sold their home, you've given them, the faith, because you're part of the whole transaction. You are the transaction to a degree, because again, you have this team. But how do you release it? I mean, when when you the house is somebody else has bought it, that degree of paperwork is done, and you get to turn to the person which you, because this is not an overnight process. It weeks or months, right?
Depending on who it is, it could be years in the making.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So if you're 60 something, you're like, all right, I'm going to start planning this now. Let's get rid of all this and let's this. And, you know, now it's 10 years later and it's like, okay, let's sell the house now.
So can people call you up and say, this is this is 2024. Can you say, say around I swear I've had all the,
wow.
I've lost in the 50s tonight, y'all. So let me try that question all over again, because I really screwed the pooch on that one. All right. So can people call you up and say, in about 5 years, we're going to sell the house? We want to work with you. What steps should we be doing now in 5 years, and then in 3 years, and then a year out? Is that feasible, or is that way?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. So let's talk about it. Let's come to the house and let's talk about what in 5 years you want. What does that look like for you? Right? What does it look like? Well, in 5 years, we don't want to be in this 4,000 square foot house anymore because we just don't want to take care of it. I'm tired of mowing the lawn. I'm tired of paying people to mow the lawn. I'm tired of cleaning this whole thing. I'm tired of paying people to clean this whole thing, whatever it is, right? We don't want to be in this big house. We want to travel. I want to lock and leave because we're going to travel in 5 years. Okay, so let's figure out what that looks like. And in the meantime, what are we going to release out and let somebody else enjoy? Right?
So you're going to,
and we work through that.
So yeah, do you prep the house as far as if it has foundation issues or anything like that?
We can, what needs to happen. So let's get the things out. Let's look at it and see, how's the roof? How's the foundation? Do you want to spend the money now and update it, or not spend the money and sell it for a lower price and let somebody else do the work? It's all going to be dependent upon the person and the house and what their goals are. This has, like I said, this isn't about me. It's me helping them get to their goal. Okay. Because, as Zig says, the more you help other people get what they want, the more you get what you want. And you asked me, how do you let it go? It's really hard because you become very good friends and you're in each other's back pocket weeks, months, sometimes years. You're in each other's back pocket. And then all of a sudden, that relationship changes, right? They may move far away. And so, I still keep in touch with people, whether they want to hear from me or not, until they tell me to stop sending me cards, Robin, or whatever it may be. Why are you calling me? I live in Maine now, but these are people that still, have a place here.
You have to, I know I'm stretching this out, but, let's say here we are in Texas, DFW, and they want to move to Maine. Are you looking for houses for them to move into Maine, or do you hand that off to some of the realtors?
I hand that to some of my my trusted partners. I know so many people. I am in this amazing group of amazing realtors that I mastermind with every single morning. 6:30 in the morning, I'm on a Zoom call masterminding with agents from all over the country. Wow. And I see them at events throughout the year. And so I know how they work. I know how they think. I know they're learning based. I know they come from gratitude and contribution. So I can match you with somebody in Maine that will take as good a care of you as I would want them to.
Okay. And that's the whole thing of networking.
So yeah.
Okay, good.
I don't want to just release somebody from DFW and let them, worry about it on their own, right? I mean, you spend 30 years here with a house and now all of a sudden you're going into a new place and you may have your kids there and you may not need me, right? Maybe they know somebody and that's great. But if you do need me, I want to be able to have those people to hand you off to.
Okay. All right. So what else do you want to say? Is there something else you want to touch base on with this? This home is everything to me.
Yeah, well, home is where, like I said, I moved around a lot when I was a kid. So home was wherever my parents were, right? I mean, it wasn't the house. And there were a couple times I was ready to go. I didn't like where we were living. So I was like, all right, when are we leaving? I lived away from my folks for a long time in California and Indiana and things like that. But it was still home wherever my parents were, even when they divorced and lived in two different places. I'm going home to my dad's. And I hadn't lived in Texas since I was 8.
Oh, wow.
I'm going home to Minnesota with my mom. And then we finally got mom all and everybody all in one state. And then I eventually got here, so, but I came home. I think if my, I don't know, if my parents had ended up in somewhere else, maybe that would have been home. But my dad eventually moved back to Dallas. My sister moved to Dallas, and then my mom moved to Dallas. Our Texarkana. We forced her to move to Dallas a few years later. But once everybody was here, it made sense for me to come home. And I've been here since 2001 now.
Perfect. So to wrap all this up, I want the listeners, the viewers, to get the idea that home is an emotional investment in something. Right now, homelessness is at an all-time high for whatever reason is going on. Whatever it is, homelessness hurts, of course, the individual who's homeless, but it hurts other people. And it gives us an intense view on what it's like to not have a grounding, a place. Right. Just put your feet up, that you can call yours. It's your, I hate to use this term, but it is your safe space that you just walk around in your underwear and scratch where you're not supposed to be scratching out in public, and say things that the thought police aren't going to nail you on and whatever, and be people, be around those thoughts. And that's okay. It's to be on. You don't have to be you all the time. This is where you let your hair out. And I think it was Burt Reynolds that said the reason he enjoyed being older and at home is because he didn't have to suck in his gut. Yeah.
Exactly. I can walk around barefoot. I can, home again. I think it's such an emotional thing, because once you realize that, like, again, I go back to the woman who had raised her kids in this house, and it was breaking her heart that she was leaving that house. And when I said, it's just a house, the memories are all here, and they're all here, and you can still see them. It's just the structure in which you built those memories. Yeah. And I have memories of every house or home I ever lived in as I was growing up and as an adult. And it's just, home is what you make of it.
And so be somebody's home, y'all. So,
exactly. Be home for somebody. Be home. And if it's not for you or yours, be home for somebody else.
In my neighborhood, there have been some people that have moved in and out. There was an older gentleman at the end of the block, and he would show up over here for Christmas, or he would come over here and talk to my kids or whatever. And God bless him, he's passed, but he was, to a degree, we were home because the rest of his family was.
Sure. They were somewhere else, or, and real quickly, sometimes when we go into some of these senior communities, and, you've got people that maybe not, they don't have their children for whatever reason, right? Estranged, never had any, I'm counting on, the bonus kids and nieces and nephews take care of me because I don't have any, but for whatever reason, they are alone. And they need you, me, somebody to help make it home for them. Even if they're in a senior community, whether it's assisted living or independent living or skilled nursing or whatever environment they're in, they still need somebody there to help them make it their home.
Absolutely. And that gives them peace, and it gives them belonging.
Community.
Community. I've many times, because again, I've worked in nursing homes and gerontology for well over 30 years. And I used to volunteer back in the 50s for over 50 years back in the 70s. Quite that old as far as the 50s. I would go to them, and the older women, because it was always the women, because the men passed before.
Yep.
Me, I don't know why God has me here still. And I said, well, that's not really your business. Now, is it? It's your job to be that to someone else, to be that, or we could use, we be home to somebody else to help them. Yeah. You're here for a reason. So be that home. All right.
Yeah.
How are they going to reach you? You got some information?
I got all the, you know, you can Google me probably and find me, but Robin McCoy at kw.com is my email. You can call me 214-226-3770. I've had that phone number for 100 years. And, you know, you can search me on the web. Robin McCoy Realty is my website. Search me on Spotify. You'll see my podcasts. I have a couple different podcasts out there that, you know, one of them I talk a lot about real estate. One I talk to all the cool people like you that I know. And then I do another one that is really more about that senior home coach, helping people just embrace that life after 60. You know, we've got a lot of years left in us. It's not, you know, whether you're 60, 70, or 80, there's a lot going on.
Nice. Senior, you're going to have to come back together. I want to talk more about that, because I'm in gerontology. I love working with older people. I've come across so many stories from these people that have met Bonnie and Clyde, that hands with, you know, all the great presidents, and met Elvis. And, you know, they tell me these stories. One lady had a house that is now on one of the runways, underneath one of the runways of DFW Airport, you know, that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
It's cool stuff, man. And we, you know, we just, you know, and this is, again, another whole show. But unfortunately, I think some of our older folks, our older adults, are dismissed.
Oh, I hate the warehousing of older folks.
Yes, and it hurts my heart.
Okay, so that's a date. I want to do this in another month or two, so I can process this thing and then get it out. All right. Until then, Robin, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
This is John Chester on the John Chester Show. We'll see you out there.